All right, let's dive right into this. Hey everybody, and welcome to my channel. My name is Noah Kelman, and today we are talking about the great jazz pianist Lyle Mays, his style, his harmony, his improvisation, and more. Really quick disclaimer, with any of these How to Sound Like the Greats videos, it's really important to remember that the single best way that you can actually study a person's playing is to go back and check out their playing and their recordings and do that work. But in a video like this, what we're gonna do is break down some of the building blocks so that it's actually an easier process for you. You can have some different building blocks of voicings, techniques, harmony, improvisation, etc. when you go back and listen to the masters themselves. Really quick announcement, I've got something that I believe is really amazing and is gonna be really interesting to you in the works. I have a waitlist in the description. I'm not gonna reveal what it is yet, I'm not quite ready, but suffice to say, it's gonna be one of the best things I've ever created. It's gonna have a ton of really unique techniques involved. And yeah, I am so excited to share it with you. So again, waitlist is in the description. Make sure you get signed up. As always, if you're new to the channel, please consider clicking the subscribe button and hitting the bell to turn on notifications so you don't miss any more videos just like this one. Also, if you already know my content, really appreciate you smashing that like button. Really helps me out. All right, let's dive into the style of Lyle Mays. So Lyle Mays is a legend that I've actually checked out more recently because of the incredible amount of requests for me to make this video. He wasn't necessarily one of my influences way back, but the deeper I dive into his playing now, the more I realize how much he has to offer. He was not just an incredible player, but an absolutely unique and prolific composer. He of course played a lot with the great Pat Metheny, and those collaborations are just gorgeous, but I find that Lyle Mays' playing does have some really interesting building blocks that we can kind of dive into. So the first thing I want to talk about is actually his harmonic sense. I found that he uses actually a lot of triadic harmony and relationships between different triadic chords. Now, what's really interesting to me is part of this is that his bass lines are incredibly melodic. It actually reminds me a lot of listening to figured bass or classical music, right? In jazz, we get a lot of bass lines that sometimes jump around when it comes to the actual chordal harmony. Even just a simple 2-5-1, this is in the key of E flat, right? We get this one jumping a fourth here, and then jumping down a fifth here, right? So this is interesting, right? We can get a lot of these types of intervallic jumps. But a really interesting way of looking at this that I think kind of plays to Lyle's style might be something like this. So we actually created passing chords using a melodic bass line. So instead of just doing 2-5-1, we actually did a bass line like this. Right? So you can literally think of this as if you were a bass singer, right? If you were in a choir, you know, it could be really beautiful to have a more melodic line like this. And now, one of the voicings that I hear very prevalent in Lyle's playing is this specific sound. I absolutely love this sound. It's one of the most beautiful little resolution formulas that we can really come across. I think it's actually used in gospel music a lot from what I've heard in my own listening, though I don't claim to be a gospel expert. So what this really is a major sus2 over the third in its most basic form. So we have 1, sus2, and 5. Why is it called sus2? Because instead of 1, 3, 5 in a normal triad, we actually replace the 3 with the 2, which wants to resolve to the 3. And then we put it over the 3. We get this absolutely gorgeous sound. And that really kind of wants to resolve up to the major, and that is the little resolution formula I'm talking about. Really pretty, right? I think we actually also hear that in certain American music. Certain American composers use it. For example, one that comes to mind would be Aaron Copland, who I am also a fan of. But this is just beautiful motion, right? We get this kind of chromatic motion in the bass. Now, where can we go from here? We can actually make this chord a little bit more interesting by adding this major 7 on top. So on top we actually have 1, 2, 5, major 7. Now I've seen this chord written a couple different ways. Let me know how you would write it, but I might call this actually F major 7 sus2 over A. For me that describes it really well. Really nice arpeggio we can do over this is actually just C major. Right, so I'm literally just doing C major in second inversion and adding the 9 here, or the 2. And this gives us yet another version of this beautiful sound that I believe I hear Lyle using quite a bit. Really quick, if you're getting a lot out of this video, please smash that like button. It really, really helps me out. Also, quick reminder, I've got something really awesome that is going to be dropping very soon. One of the biggest projects I've ever worked on. Link is in the description for the waitlist. Highly recommend you get signed up. And also, if you are new to the channel, please consider hitting that subscribe button and hitting that little bell to turn on notifications because I've got videos like this rolling out all the time. So let's get a little bit into his triadic harmony and chords here. So one interesting sound is just B over A, right? So this is actually kind of simple Lydian sound, but I've also heard him do B over A sharp, which I find really interesting. Resolves nicely to B flat minor or B flat major. And then we get that Lydian sound again with C over B flat. I also have heard D flat over A, this sound, right? So we actually get the major major third above the bass note. So what does that give us really? That gives us major 7 sharp 5, and the sharp 5 is the F here. So if we mess around with some of these, we can get some really interesting sounds. Really, really cool stuff. Now going back to this major triad with a suspended 2 over the 3 here, I've also heard Lyle do things like this, which I think is really interesting, right? Instead of being over the 3, we are actually doing really the major 7. So we could call this G major 7 sus2 over F sharp. And sometimes this might be really nice because again, Lyle uses a lot of leading bass lines. So it creates this beautiful clash in the harmony before the resolution. And here we keep the 3 and the 4 in. Beautiful. Absolutely love this. This is a sound that I've heard Brad Melda use quite a bit as well, actually having the 3 and 4 together. Really love it. Now, 2 of my favorite voicings that I've actually showed a lot on this channel are also voicings that I picked out of Lyle's playing. So we had 1, 5, 9, 3, 7. This is another really pretty one. And then we also have 1, 5, 9, flat 3, flat 7, which is a C minor 9. We can also add the 11 in here. Same way we could actually add an 11 in here. So, and these are just some more beautiful voicings that I've taken here. And so hopefully this gives you some really awesome context about Lyle's approach to both voicings and harmony. A lot of triadic voicings and triadic slash chords here, and then beautiful triadic movement in the bass, as well as just melodic bassline development for the creation of passing chords. Now, of course, there is a beautiful technique that Lyle uses on a song called Chorino, or at least I'm assuming it's pronounced Chorino. It's spelled C-H-O-R-I-N-H-O. Reminds me of Ronaldinho. I actually am a huge soccer fan. Any other soccer fans out there? I'm a huge soccer fan, played in college. That's a little known fact about me that you probably didn't really care about, but now you know. But this song is incredible, so impressive. He's using this technique in the left hand that I actually find really, really difficult because it's a bit of a stretch for my hands. And I guess I'm just not conditioned for this. So this is one of those techniques that if you can master it, it's really going to actually improve your stretching and strength. So it's a little tricky for me. So I can kind of feel that if I practice this daily, I would get so much better at it. I think I could get the stretch going, right? 1, 2, 3, 4. And you see we're using a lot of this kind of 10th based harmony. So we have E to G, which is a 10th. And it's really just creating a C major triad, right? We have C, E, and G, but we have that this chord over the 3. We go to F major, right? Maybe G major. Same shape over E major. And this is really, really cool stuff. Very tricky. I would actually challenge you to try to do this over a standard, right? This again plays into Lyle's bass lines, which almost favor melodic bass line motion over the chord progression itself in a sense, right? So as opposed to going from root to root, we are preferring doing slash chords. Now this song is on his 1988 album Street Dreams. Absolutely love it and highly recommend you check it out. But of course, what he can do is improvise flawlessly over this entire progression. So I'm already messing up. That is tricky stuff. But this is a nice moment to actually dive into his improvisation a little bit. So I find Lyle's lines, of course, really impressive technically, but what I hear happening is some different combinations of arpeggios and also just great linear scalar connections. So he had a way of quite literally just going from scale to scale, almost classic chord scale theory type scale movement between chords. So here we have C major. Then we switch to F Lydian, G major, or actually G dominant, let's say, since I played G dominant in the scale. And then here we could actually do this is a nice little scale to use in these passing chord triadic harmonies. What is the scale? This actually comes from the harmonic minor modes. And this is the 5th mode of A harmonic minor, right? So if we had, we're starting on E. We could also just think of this as E major. But I love how this mode sounds. Very similar to Mixolydian flat 6, which is another good option, but we have this actual flat 2 to A minor, right? So quite literally just being able to connect scale to scale flawlessly. This is really classic jazz chord scale theory. However, this triadic harmony creates such a beautiful motion in the way he connects from scale to scale because the melodicism of the bass line actually creates a certain melodicism of the melodic line as well. But aside from that, he really incorporates some beautiful arpeggios, and I noticed that he's a player who really loves to get high up on the keyboard, and I love that, just the full utilization going all the way into the high registers. So arpeggios we can use here would be those major triads, especially over the sus2 over 3 chords. So we're doing C major, as I explained before. And check this out, it works really nice over F major as well. So over the G, now I'm actually doing 5, 1, 3, 4. So I'm doing that kind of 4 added sound. And then another one would be just arpeggiating over that sus2 sound, right? 1, 2, 5. So let's do this sus2 arpeggio going into the C major 9 over F. Beautiful. Going into that G with the 4. And now we're doing E major but with that flat 6. So it's almost all arpeggiated, but we can combine that then with our lines. So we'll do some arpeggiation and some very linear chromatic motion. So not perfect there. So impressive how Lyle does it, of course. Check him out for the true experience, obviously. Now, also in terms of his improv, you might have noticed me doing a lot of grace notes, right? And I call them flicks sometimes because I kind of like to name the different grace notes in jazz piano, but someone asked me recently, why don't you just call them grace notes? They are grace notes. I just like to give very specific names to certain ones. So for example, I'll call this a flick because it feels like a flick. Or maybe a roll, kind of rolling the hand one way. Or maybe a slide, because we're just sliding one finger. So I don't know if anyone else calls these grace notes specific names like this, but if they do, let me know. I personally like doing it. I find it helpful. Just gives us a little bit more specific naming structure for the different types that we might hear in popular music. So I hear Lyle do a lot of flicks, slides for sure. And this is also very apparent when he plays chords. And this actually reminds me of something that I forgot to say when speaking about Lyle's harmony. One thing I noticed is that he uses a lot of ascending arpeggiation of his chords. This is a really beautiful way to add motion to your progression through, well, a chord progression. So we're just arpeggiating the chords up, maybe doing some arpeggiation. All right, everybody, thank you so much for watching. That is all I have for you today. But if I missed anything, please let me know in the comments. I would love to hear your opinions on this analysis of Lyle's style. As always, again, disclaimer, best place to learn about him is from his recordings, but I hope this gives you some nice groundwork laid down so that you can actually go into his recordings and hear some of what we're talking about here today. Thank you so much for watching, and I will catch you in the next video.